Before I even get started with this video, I'm just going to tell you right off the gate, there's a whole bunch of reincarnations of Link, but there are some reoccurring things that kind of make it worth making one video about all these different characters in one video instead of just separating them into more than one video. There's reoccurring things that appear in this universe, like the Triforce being the same Triforce throughout all the timeline, the Master Sword being reused multiple times by different Links, which should technically still have the same level of power if it's never retconned. In turn, I believe a lot of these Links, they live different lives, they have a lot of similar things. Like, not all the Links have this mask, not all Links have the Master Sword, things like that. They have their own perks, and their feats should kind of be shared. Although it is true over the years, there's different Links that have different type of abilities. They all have a lot of similarities, more than not differences. There's this one particular character that they all should technically compare to and have fought, and that will be the being known as Ganondorf, a being that's constantly showing up throughout the Legend of Zelda saga, no matter which continuity or even separate timelines, which is why making one video about all these different characters, kind of giving each other's feats, kind of being the same guy, kind of would make some sense. But I could totally understand why some people wouldn't want to put all these characters in one video, because they all do have a lot of similarities, but they also have different stuff that they do, or different gears and stuff. But with that being said, I hope you guys still enjoy this analysis, because this was a nightmare to make, guys, but I do this stuff for y'all. Everybody always talks about all the different versions of comic book characters and get frustrated at it, especially if they're new to the comic book world. At least in comics, this is explained through the multiverse being multiple different universes, why there's multiple different versions of the characters. But you don't hardly ever see folks complaining about all the different Links. But in this situation, they're all in the same universe, though. Whenever there's a hero that needs to be reincarnated, Link will appear no matter which era. There's been a ton of different Links. The thing about the Zelda timeline, that it's actually got an official chart or a legit timeline that people can go off of to see the actual order of it, how everything went down. It's a lot to absorb for a newcomer coming in. What about you, though? Does the Link timeline confuse you? Don't get me wrong, I enjoy using Link's costume in Bayonetta, and just so I don't have to make 10 plus Link videos, I'll be going over multiple different Links in this vid, because even though they're all different, they all have a lot of similarities. Not to mention they all have a very similar look too, for the most part when it comes to their hair color and even eye color. He's skilled with a sword, can use bow and arrow. A lot of times he wields a sword alongside a shield, also wielding a bow and arrow. Link is a character that has a ton of deep pockets. I'm talking about loaded with magical artifacts, talismans, swords, enchantments, potions, just gear, power-ups on the spot, on hand. Part of this is because it's fun as a gamer to be able to play with different weapons. He have his own literal fairy. Like, bruh. One of the Links I'm going to go over is awesome because he has a base form. He can wear masks where he has different transformations, even a fierce deity transformation, which is epic. I'll talk about this stuff later in the video, though. But how strong is he? Link has a lot of different ways he can attack you. Sword energy blast attacks, magic blast attacks, just all kind of attacks in general, right? Some of this could be due to his combat speed on top of it, too, to add more power to his blows. No matter which area, it seems like he has unnatural strength to be able to lift up huge stuff that's bigger than him. Even picking up this giant robot sword in this incarnation, to fight, to help during the battle, to chop it up that way. This version lifts a sizable bolt over his head. He can jump decently far while holding stuff. Strong enough to throw Link doppelgangers at each other. Yeah, there was a game where you actually had clones of Link. Pulls off an automatine's arm. Pulls this big arm like that. Big stones like this he can push, despite it being way bigger than himself. Large stone doors, get out of my way, I'm just gonna push it open. A giant metal door, same again, push it open. Large stone cube, I'm just gonna pull. We all know Link gets a lot of different artifacts. One of the artifacts he gets in the lore are the Golden Gauntlet, which is officially stated, Nintendo's player guide, official stuff. It's stated to give the strength of man the power to move mountains. Link can use these type of weapons, and you can see an image of how the castle looks in this particular occasion versus different things. You already know he has a sword and other equipment. He's had other swords like the Locomo sword, Master Sword, which has the power to drive back demons and stuff. It's perfect for his adventures, basically. The goddess has blessed your blade, the Master Sword. It's imbued with mythical power to drive back demons. Only those with the spirit may wield it, aka him, because he's the reincarnation hero, basically. Whenever this place needs it, it can shatter barriers of darkness with just chopping with the sword like that. Get rid of it like that. When it was struck by electricity, it can use lightning too. Lightning projection. It's a very powerful sword. It can even regenerate itself over time to where it's usable way later in the future and stuff. Because this sword is important for the saga, right? But did you know before being forged, it was actually the goddess sword? The Master Sword was at first. This mysterious sword is bathed in divine light. Whether we're talking about the Master Sword or goddess sword, then chop tentacles with its sacred power like such. Just something it always can do with one chop. Or it can just release stuff in a bolt like that. When it comes to swinging power, he can cut through trees with just slicing it up. No matter which continuity, he can do it in any continuity, really. This is just standard stuff for any version of Link, I would say, and Log in this continuity. It doesn't matter. And in this one too, you guys get the idea. When he had the Master Sword, he stabs it into stone like that. And without using a sword, he can break wooden crates just by rolling into it. Another occasion of him doing the roll technique to do something similar yet again. Knock him out of the tree. The different opponents he had to fight, he can send them flying that far with his strikes. Same with this golem in this fight in this older game. Different version of Link. It doesn't matter. Blocking his projectiles. This large spiked ball he just hits back during this mini fight. Fighting big creatures that are several stories tall too to show his strength. These logs just completely get destroyed, it seems, on screen with chops. Same with stone blocks in this one too. Same with gravestones. Large ones. They can just break. The clones of Link. Cooling lava like that with the chop. Implied he can jump really high. There's many fights fighting the top tiers of his universe. This Link, one of the reoccurring people he can always fight in strength, obviously Gandorf. So whatever Gandorf can do physically, Link should be able to do. Not just striking power, but just literally physical strength in general. They're having a literal contest of strength. You can see their arms clashing with one another, and he can match them regardless. Has gear that allows him to be able to lift stuff like that, that's that big up with raw strength. If we assume that big old block he lifted was steel, it should be estimated that he can lift over 100 tons, especially with the special gear that allows him to levitate stuff or pick it up telekinetically. Non-canon versions of Link have the strength to be able to break through chain in this television series. Yeah, I know that's funny. Stops this rolling giant, literally from rolling by pushing him aside. Does it again when they're wearing metal armor, in this occasion with his literal strength. He stopped beings like this that can break chains with his strength just by jumping like that. Part of the reason why Link's so strong, in certain eras he has stuff that can literally make his strength increase. He has bracelets that can make his strength increase, which is why one could say he basically has superhuman capabilities because of different parts of his gear and etc. with his strength. There's even been calcs on Link being able to lift stuff that weighs over 10,000 tons. He has tons of ways to power himself up physically, speed-wise, and etc. Like a multitude of different masks he can put on to literally do some transformation. Like he could literally transform into a Goron, my dude. Yeah. Increase strength and durability when he puts this mask on to do punch like that. And he can endure lava heat in this new state. This mask, he transforms into a Zora. Yeah, increases his swimming speed when he puts this mask on, if you know what I mean. In this state, he's able to create an energy beam around himself to where if enemies come close, they imply to be able to get hurt from just coming near. A mask that literally allows him to become giant. He has to be as strong as his size would be, or he wouldn't even be able to stand up, so it kind of pretty much increases his strength to a high degree, because he was literally able to swing around this giant creature that had to weigh over hundreds of tons easily, because he's probably over hundreds of tons at this point. And he's starting off to roll through stone pillars like that. Link has a stone mask. It makes you inconspicuous as a stone. Basically not being able to attract attention like stone. And in this version of Link, he has the Hawkeye mask. It gives him better aim, basically, to be able to zoom in with better eyesight. Part of the reason why he's so strong is because he wields the Triforce. When it comes to power-ups he's had, Triforce is one of the many things that Link has had. It is a golden power, the god that grants the wish in the heart of the one who touches it. If a righteous-hearted person touches it, a righteous wish. If an evil person touches it, an evil wish. The stronger the person's wish, the more the Triforce will demonstrate that power. Ganon's wish was to claim the world. That evil wish changed the sacred land into the world of darkness, letting you know what the Triforce is capable of. He can even turn into a fairy with some of his skills. He even been granted abilities by other beings in the universe. I think we all can agree that's a non-negotiable based on how strong the opponents this character fights. Will be a good way to understand how strong he is. Giants like this, they can destroy big giant structures like that just by simply standing up. This same giant skeleton being could probably level buildings, and Link can attack and harm these same beings too. So I think it's fair we know that Link could destroy a building with his blast if he wanted to. I mean, his bombs aren't even his main aspect about himself, and they can do crazy levels of explosions like this to big gigantic rocks. So I think that's a no question. Another occasion just to get an idea of how strong his bombs are. His sword, overpowered Master Sword, should be above stuff like this. Then you got this Link. This incarnation was a child at once and grew up to an adult as well. This version is back to the Master Sword again. This Link in particular, we already know he has the power to move mountains thanks to his golden gauntlet. That just kind of gives you a base minimum of what his striking power is, because if he has gauntlets that can just produce this much energy, there's no reason to say he shouldn't strike with this much power, because usually when folks can lift this much, they can strike with higher force, or at the bare bones minimum at least the same amount. but that's an extreme low ball because fighters in real life always punch harder than what they can lift. You can also get an idea of what this universe thinks of mountains. Even if they mean push, not necessarily lift, that still takes a lot of energy to even move a mountain just from pushing it. If we assume they're saying he can't necessarily lift it, but just push it. Websites like this have their own calculations on how much power it would need to be to produce something like this. This particular one determined that for it to weigh this many kilograms, which comes out to be a rough estimation of 15 billion tons, he would be able to move, or one could say attack with technically. That's like saying Link could level a small town or something in real life if he had to slice with a certain amount of power. And then you got Majora's Mask Link, which is, technically, these are one of the few Links that's actually the legit same guys, just two separate timelines. Time travel was involved. Coincidence where technically these are the same being when they got some of the most flashy feat. Like this one stated in guidebooks to have gauntlets that can make him be able to move mountains. What a coincidence that this one also is the same guy that has overpowered stuff like overpowered math. Base form with a mask, he can turn into different forms that increases already ridiculous power, and they all have their own perks or attributes that make them special. The fierce deity mask, for example, this being Majora that Link was battling, was able to pull the moon from the sky, which was going to annihilate the world and its many inhabitants, which is actually insane that everything was threatened by a literal moon being pulled from the sky. If we assume their moon in their universe has similar weight to our moon in real life, that means he had to match a being that had magic power on the level to be able to move quintillions of tons. He can match this type of power. He should be able to produce this level of striking power, be able to move such force as well with his raw power. There's even implications that Majora, the being that Link was fighting, literally sucked them into the moon itself after the moon had got stopped. It's implied there's a whole different realm inside of them that has an actual star in it. One can imply star levels of power too. From Majora to be able to create something like that from this mask Link had to fight. Pulling the moon is one thing, but having the power to pull the moon that far effortlessly, and Mask is just playing around this antagonist, this fierce deity mask that he puts on seems to be able to even the odds in just raw power no matter what, and just straight up in a straight up fight. Implying that he probably has that level of power in general or magic power, literally fighting it straight up. And it's not rocket science. It's not like he's beating him with hacks. He's beating him because of this deity mask powering him up more than ever before. Even when Majora had transformed, still matched and battled his being in power. There seems to be a drastic difference between these two. In this state, they implied he couldn't take him on, but with the fierce deity mask, they implied he could take him on. Considering that he's at bare bones minimum in the moon ranges, there's also implication he could be in that star ranges, which is massively more bigger than the moon, which would make him even more deadly than before. Millions and millions of times planet-shattering levels of power in this state, technically. If we're to take this feat seriously, of him matching somebody that has the raw magic power of blasting with a sun, creating a star out of completely nothing, if we're to take that seriously. Fierce deity mask imply he could kind of slice apart the moon. In this particular animation of the fierce deity, the moon is nowhere near the size of a real moon, but they're implying they're trying to say it can do similar things what the other fierce deity thing did, or fighting a being that can drag the moon with his magic power. They're trying to say he can kind of do the same thing with the fierce deity mask. Kind of makes sense. I don't see why he wouldn't have that power. I mean, all they was doing was mimicking something that happened in a previous game when it comes to slicing that moon like that. Instead, in the other game, you didn't see him slice the moon. It just showed the moon coming down, but he fought the being that made the moon come down in the other game. But in this game, he did just straight on showing him split it like that. There's been different Zelda games where the moon has been moved. When it comes to moon or planetary type feats, I know what you're thinking. In certain angles, the moon doesn't look that freaking big. Like if you want to go by pure size, yeah, this moon does not look like the size of an actual moon. The only reason I believe this is an actual moon is because it was literally stated that it was going to destroy everything was in danger. This is just a console limitation. But even if it's not the size of a real moon, this is still a ridiculous feat. Even if you want to go by the actual size of it, by the way it visually looks, even if it's not the size of a real moon, the real moon would have covered this whole screen technically, but you get the idea. I'd say plenty of evidence to suggest this is definitely possible. Can slice the moon in half. But then you got this Link got the Locomo sword. One of the beings he had to fight with this sword, he had the power to fight it. Malladus, not only fight the being, actually defeat the being as well. Working together in this occasion, Demon King Malladus, night. In pain you are, yep, defeated. This being had a vessel, that the vessel wasn't right, so he was running out of time to be in the vessel. It stated the spirit was slipping from it, but despite all of this, can't hold on for long. but I will destroy the world in the time I have left. They have to be talking about Hyrule at least. That's this continent. So one can be based on statements like this. They technically overpowered something that could destroy the supposed world, or one could say continent Hyrule here. Despite all this power this being had, they still won. Thanks in part to this sword. Let you know, could this sword continent shatter if it wanted to? This version of Link, you guessed it, faced off against Ganondorf yet again, but only this time, full essence of the Triforce was able to change the sacred land into the world of darkness. This version of Link was able to battle this version of Ganondorf, who had the true Triforce. I mean, just like how big he looked in this particular occasion, but is it really a shock that he can fight a being like this? It's kind of like his main person he always fights. This isn't really shocking for him to be on that level of power. As far as we know, I don't think the Triforce is really getting retconned that much despite the different reincarnations of Link. So yeah, we saw what stuff that's not as strong as the Triforce can do, like moving the moon and stuff. Narratively speaking, it's definitely improving that his sword is able to produce blast power enough to harm him no matter what. Putting him to sleep like that is what released the Triforce. You see it floating. Then he got a piece. Then they use it working together to blast Ganondorf with it. This guy was so proud of that Link fought that he transformed it into his own image, and Link and company fought this same being that he always fights in his continuity. One of the many antagonists or opponents he's fought, this being was able to defeat this being who had the power, this water dragon, of course. Almost every inch of the greenery in the area is submerged thanks to this water dragon being. Beings like this that Link comes across can produce this much energy on the spot. Link has fought beings like Demise, who's an extremely powerful being. He even harmed the goddess that blessed Link in the first place. And when it comes to raw energy these beings can produce, Link has no problem just fighting them in just the context of raw power or just strikes in general. Same with durability. Despite all this power this being can produce, this same being that he just put on his butt is comparable to beings this overpowered that can create a whole bunch of clouds. You're probably thinking clouds are super light. That's not impressive, making a whole bunch of clouds. Well, when you make this much clouds, a cloud barrier placed between the sky and the land, sending them away from each other. No one is allowed to pass from one place to the other. They even go as far as saying a sea of clouds. Link was empowered by this same being that did this crazy thing to be able to beat something up that was giving her some issues. So to let you know that Link should be somewhere in the ranges of it. So technically Link should be able to slice open an island based on just the mass amount of clouds you can produce when it comes to her pure energy, using one of his three major weapons at least, the goddess sword, the true mastered sword, stuff like that. This is the Link in particular, I would say, has the power at least to be able to level an island, I would say, based on the evidence of the goddess blessing him and the power in general, fighting a being that mortally wounded the goddess itself. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword Link, at least, could slice in an island in half at the very least. With his powerful weapons, he can attack, whether it be bombs or whatever, with that kind of force. Different Links like this, that has the Force Sword that's not the Master Sword, was able to fight beings like Viti when he was amped with the Light Force. Yeah, you can see he was literally trying to get amped by the Light Force. Despite this transformation, Link in raw power was still and just in power in general. The reason why matching this being is impressive, not only in base state, but a transformed state. This being's magic power was strong enough to cause Hyrule to be covered in a storm. Clouds covered all of Hyrule. Controlling all of that and creating it with their magic raw power lets you know the scope of which power these beings are fighting. Link fighting beings like this, swept across the land. Hyrule itself confirming to be a continent. One can debatably say continental ranges of power to be able to produce a cloud that's continent sized, or since clouds are lighter than continents, obviously, maybe you can scale it down to maybe an island or city size energy needing to be produced to create something this big, right? Maybe, kinda, sorta. And Link is able to fight these type of threats and combat their magical power. Who managed to defeat, no matter what the artwork looks like. This is one of the reasons why I made a video with all these different Links, because for the most part, they all fight one of the same beings of all time, Ganondorf, no matter what, in any era basically, who is just a constant reoccurring threat in the saga. Then you got this Link. He can even use crossbows. To some degree, he's comparable to other Links and all the stuff I've already shown. Then you got this Link. Oh, what do you know? Another time of him fighting Ganondorf to prove that the Links are comparable in power because they're fighting the same being that keeps getting resurrected over the years and can truly never be killed. Despite some Links having more flashy feats than others, when it comes to their base states, a lot of them are relative to one another, even if one character has more flashy feats than the other. Then you got this Oracle's Link that, who would have ever guessed, fights Ganondorf yet again to show their relativity to other Links in their base state for the most part. But this one just happens to have a piece of the Triforce. I mean, the Link Between Worlds Link was so powerful, he even fight Triforce users This being is considered one of the top tiers of the verse, and you guessed it, Link can still battle these magical sorcerers like this in raw power. Oh, what do you know? Using the power of Triforce of Wisdom, Link crushed the Demon King and saved Princess Zelda. The Adventure of Link version of him was able to do this, no surprise. This Link wields the Master Sword. Not all Links have this, but the Breath of the Wild version simply does. All the feats I mentioned so far about what the sword can do so far, I shouldn't have to keep repeating it. But yeah, this one should kind of apply to him too in raw power. Relative to the other Links in this universe that has wielded the Master Sword in the past, he should be able to do the similar thing. Stuff like that, like I already mentioned. Oh, and what do you know? The Breath of the Wild one can battle one of the main antagonists of the saga, yet again, Ganon, Calamity, aka Gandalf, something that Link's just always fight no matter which era or whatever. Not to mention this Ganon was powered up like crazy. Look how huge he is in comparison to him too. Just to really get a scope on what he's really has him in the face. It only makes sense for his power to be on that level because he literally has to fight these beings with his sword, slashes, and gear. Narratively speaking. Like imagine one Link being moon level and then another Link is at best building level. That just doesn't make sense for the narrative. Especially considering that they all exist in the same universe but just at different eras of time. I mean look at all this equipment this version of Link got. Gauntlets with a ball, shield and a sword just like normal, and then his own personal fairy. Throughout the years, he has many different ways to attack you, it's shown. Like the classic spin attack. It's exactly what it sounds like. This is something he always does, no matter which reincarnation of him. Some games even make it to where spin attack can reach farther, charging his sword attack like that. He can make it like a shockwave on the ground and hit every direction. Respectable. He can shoot energy beams from his sword, or he just straight up stab you while you're on the ground. Sometimes he stabs folks so hard he accidentally embeds it in the ground too hard he has to pull it back out. Partly because of his skills, he has no problem looking for openings to get the advantage over you that way from behind. Lethal blows where he keeps his sword sheathed until he's ready. And he draws like that. But he also carries bombs where he can just throw it and destroy big rocks like that, which are pretty decently big. On this occasion, he can blow up stuff like this on this occasion to really show the type of stuff he carried. Same with this huge stone brick wall. Again, metal balls through a cannon. That's funny. Different type of bows and arrows, like messing up some guards here, for example. Large pumpkins just get shattered. Can shoot spread shots, aka shoot multiple arrows at once, like a shotgun, one could say, with a spread. Elemental arrows like fire arrows that melt thick blocks of ice. Thaws a giant dragon head, letting you know how hot these individual arrows are. Insanely hot for them to do it that quick, these big old structures. You can't have an elemental character not use ice too. Stuff is super icy to where it can freeze an erupting volcano. How cold does your thing have to be? He's even used bomb arrows, light arrows filled with sacred light. It helps him vanquish beings that usually wouldn't be able to be hit. This is what happens when you attack them when you're not using sacred light. They just pop back up. Like, yeah. But with the sacred light, I guess that's his weakness. Dude, yeah. These beams are actual light because they reflect off of mirrors and stuff and let you know. Like how it reflected off the mirror shield. He has other swords over the continuities, not just the Master Sword, the Biggering sword, and won't break. This sword was forged by a master smith. The fourth sword, when it draws, it splits into 4 copies of himself. So you don't have to only worry about one Link, you gotta worry about freaking 4 or 3 Links now. Breaking curses and stuff. They copy Link's actions to mimic his move. Like in this case, in working together. A freaking hammer, which can flip nearby creatures with the hammer. Destroys a large boulder in this old pixelated occasion. Weapons such as balls and chains to swing around like that to break stuff. Explosive powder he carries around. He has an ice rod that can make freezing magic. Just another excuse to use ice element like I already showed already. Him using ice earlier. Did I mention he has shock arrows too and more newer stuff? And yes, he can use wind too, just when it comes to different elements, right? Make an updraft. Like just turning enemies weaker or just all different types of spells. Plenty others, not limited to just the ones I'm mentioning though when it comes to spells. He has these ancient arrows to make the enemy disappear. His gear, he has defense like the Hylian shield that can deflect stuff. Not only can they block missile-like projectiles, but they can also reflect them back at him to do damage to a person shooting. In this occasion, blocking these floor tiles, launching at them. Beings that are strong enough to break stone bridges. Like that. That being did that just by standing up, but he can block these hits with his shield. Not only that, he can damage beings this strong. He's been protected from being rolled over by big creatures like this. You get an idea of how strong he is too by these big creatures he be fighting. This shield is described as being indestructible. Legendary shield. I brought up the mirror shield a while ago. This mirror shield can help reflect things like a mirror. It can store fire or ice magic when they're getting shot at him. Literally absorb it, soak it up. He's had other shields that can do similar things too. The sacred shield. It just has low durability and it breaks easy. You can kind of upgrade it to a more durable version if you kind of use game mechanics, I guess. So he has plenty of defense for different types of protections, no matter which continuity, I would say, whether it be a shield or just making an energy ball around him to protect him from damage. Even magic armor like this makes him pretty much invulnerable to damage. In different continuities, the magic armor is used in different ways. Like in this, create a barrier around him to protect him against enemy attacks. In this particular occasion, this magic armor. Yeah, that's why I say different links are very similar. He's used slingshots. He can use things to increase his movement speed in certain continuities. And of course, he has stuff like potions throughout different eras. The standard thing you see in games where they heal the character and stuff, you know, just different elixirs and stuff. Link, when it comes to speed, is actually fast enough to avoid lasers, which are actual beams of light. Link even appears in Soul Calibur, guys. Obviously, that Link is completely non-canon, but yo, you guys get the idea. Link is a very powerful character. How strong do you think he is? Because you probably didn't think he can do all this stuff. I think we all can agree pretty much all base versions are probably relative to one another, with some links having better gear, some links not having the same sword, so that can also change which links is more powerful than other as well. They all have a very wide range of versatile magic, elements, pretty much all of them can use elements. But what do you guys think? Did you know Link was this strong, or the links were this strong? Did you know he had this many different types of abilities and gear and destructive capacity throughout the game's battles? If I was a writer, just to get rid of all this confusion, I would do some like multiversal time travel stuff and just have Link put on some Batara earrings or a fusion technique and have all the links fused together so it can eliminate confusion. They should just make him on some all links in one. I am not one Link, I am all links. I'm coming for you, Ganondorf. My favorite transformation is definitely the Fierce Deity transformation. But I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. And I also want to give a quick shout out to everybody that has taken the time to donate to the channel. Helps out a lot, believe it or not. Respect Link.